kind of at the broader picture of climate change. That's kind of what Christy's asked me to do. And I was thinking about, in the late 2000s, the Minnesota State Legislature commissioned a climate impact study for the state of Minnesota. And they gave that charge to the University of Minnesota, and it was going to be an interdisciplinary look at the 21st century, the likely impacts of climate change in the state of Minnesota over the next 85 years, 90 years, so through the 21st century. And those of us who are working with the land, when that report came out, there really weren't that many surprises because there were things that we were already experiencing. Higher dew points, warmer winters, warmer nighttime temperatures during the summers, fewer days with snow cover, weaker jet stream causing instability in weather patterns. And much of the report was focused on agriculture. No surprise, Minnesota being a big agricultural state. And one of the things that was interesting about the report is that it said that over the next century, we're likely to have a much longer growing season here. And Big Ag was sort of quick to put a spin on that in saying, that's a positive, isn't it? That's good, right? Well, now we know that along with potential increased yields come a tremendous amount of disruption to natural ecological systems that are required to sort of uphold all of that system to make that work. One of the things that was so interesting about the report, and that I listened to with real interest, is that the forecast was for Minnesota and the upper Midwest to fare better when it comes to rainfall. So those places that are wet are going to tend to get wetter, and those places that are dry are going to tend to be drier. And the report said that Minnesota would have fewer droughts than many other parts of the country over the next 100 years. Now, I'm saying this after one of the driest seasons in the past 100 years, and the third season in a row of below normal, considerably below normal precipitation. So one of the things that we know is that the computer models that are being used to sort of look that far out into the future are really unable to keep up with the rate of change that's taking place. And I think folks are starting to realize that. So those of us that are coming off of this unusually dry season are left sort of thinking, is this the new norm? Is this level of unpredictability, is it sustainable for us as farmers on a personal level? Likewise, the University of Wisconsin-Madison also has been deeply involved in climate studies, and they're producing a number of reports and maps and other things through the Nelson Institute at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And their interpretation of the next 100 years is slightly different. They say wetter than normal springs, wetter than normal falls, but drier than normal summers. So in some ways that sort of fits the pattern that we've had here. If the rain materializes in the next couple days, we could end up with a wetter than normal fall. The Wisconsin report, no surprise, focused on the dairy industry, which is the backbone of agriculture here in Wisconsin. And they were very concerned about the likelihood of decreased milk production. And that having to do with cow comfort in extreme heat, that cows don't do well in extreme heat, and that it's going to take more effort and more energy to keep cows comfortable. And so as part of the Nelson Institute studies, they provide a series, detailed series of maps looking back at the past 100 years and in about 20 to 25 year increments, looking at changes over time. And the thing that's interesting, they on these maps, they put, and I'd encourage you to go to their website to look at them. They're really fascinating. But they put on these maps deviations from the historic norm. And one of the things that's really interesting is that northwestern Wisconsin, including Polk County, is in the highest level of deviation in many of the categories. Extreme weather events, straight line wind events, higher dew points, later than normal frosts. Those are all things we're experiencing here in real time. And I was reminded of a presentation at the Organic Conference some years ago by an extension climatologist, Bill Bland. And he had a map, and the map included a 5-county area in northwestern Wisconsin, which include part of Polk County, most of Barron County, most of Dunn and Chippewa, had the highest deviation in extreme weather events from any other counties in Wisconsin during that time. So no surprise then in 2015, the first cases of late blight that were found in the state of Wisconsin were found in the Amory area, because dew points are considerably higher, and that's one of the impacts from extreme dew points. So what are some of the impacts that we're dealing with on our farm and the farmers gathered together here? I want to mention a few of them, and then I want to mention a few of the things that are hopeful and that I think we can do together. One of the things that appears to be a kind of a new pattern, it's hard to really, we've been farming for 35 years. We haven't had a fairly warm spring in some time. So one of the trends that's happening is springs tend to be sluggish. We've had our winter season moving into spring, and then a very rapid warm-up from spring to summer. 2001, we had, on the 27th of May, we got down to 27 degrees. And 7 days later, we had 98 degrees, 6 days in a row over 90. And that rapid warm-up, that very quick move from a gentle spring to a hot summer is one of the things that they're saying could be a reality for us here. And the plants, as well as the people, can't really adapt to that very well. Those of you that make maple syrup know this well. The maple syrup season is now, it's always been somewhat unpredictable, but it's becoming even more so. And what has historically been a 3 to 4 week season is now in some cases condensed down to 10, 12 good days of run. And you have to be ready for that, and it can turn off at any time once the temperature moves beyond that optimal time. So, trying to make sense of my notes, one of the other things that's happening to us in the fall here is our average first frost is moving back. And on one thought, you think, oh, well, that's a good thing. It gives us a little more summer. But these minor disruptions that seem sort of minor can have major consequences for us on our farms. Insects can go through another life cycle, and their populations are exponential. And so we're seeing insect pressure building up on our farms. We're seeing certain weed species taking advantage of this late season heat like we had here, the string of 80-degree days a few weeks ago, still seeing weeds germinate. And one of the things that we're seeing with weeds is we're seeing the life cycle of weeds accelerating to the point where they're from germinating to setting seed has been condensed and has accelerated. And that's becoming a little bit of a problem for us as organic farmers. weeds are growing faster, and nighttime temperature and higher CO2 levels and things are contributing to some of that. So some of the questions for us, I think, as a local foods community is, will climate impact what we eat and what we can grow here? And there's a very real possibility that some of those garden favorites are going to be increasingly difficult to grow. And I'll give you one example, fall spinach. It's something that we love growing, and we're having a very, very difficult time in the last 10 years growing fall spinach. One, you seed it typically in August, and soil temperatures are a lot higher than they have been historically. And spinach doesn't like to germinate in warm soils. So then we irrigate it to cool it down and to get it to germinate. Then you take something like a string of 80-degree days that we had here a week and a half ago. We had 3 weeks of broccoli come together at one time, and much of our fall spinach bolt during that extreme heat. So this is, you're looking at conditions that they're so unpredictable, and we don't really even know how to respond to them. So I'll kind of wrap up here with a few things that I think we maybe can do to respond. I think for those of you that are interested in getting a little more involved in climate research and citizen science, I'd like to recommend the Cocoa Raws site. I don't know if any of the farmers in the group are part of Cocoa Raws. It's now becoming one of the largest citizen science projects in the country. It's called the Collaborative Community Rain and Hail effort. There are 30,000 contributors around the country, a lot of schools, individuals. You buy a rain gauge, you record what you're receiving, both in terms of liquid precipitation and snowfall, and you add that to this public database, which is then available for across the country. And it's becoming a really, really powerful way to see what's happening with storms, to see the uneven distribution of rainfall. For the vegetable farmers in the group, certainly getting to know the resources that are available at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Plant pathologist Amanda Gevins, who we've had visit our farm, and some of you farmers were there for that event. We're seeing plant diseases that are developing so quickly that we really don't even have time to identify them. And so we're needing to draw upon the experts at the university. And I guess one of the things in terms of lessons here and ways to respond is that we're just really going to need to rely upon each other a lot more. For farmers, we're going to need to just be sharing information real time, on the ground. What are you seeing, and how are you responding to that? Helping each other out as much as we can. We also need to be talking more about climate change. And we need to find, it's an uncomfortable topic. It's uncomfortable to talk to your CSA members about climate change, or your farmers market patrons, or friends about climate change. But it really is the story for us for the rest of our lives. This is real, this is here. There aren't a lot of real clear answers, but we know that it's going to be community, that we're going to have to deal with it together, and we're going to have to find a way. And an organization like the St. Croix Valley Food Alliance, I think part of its mission is for us to figure out ways to involve eaters, farmers, everyone involved in the food shed, to ensure that we can continue to grow food here and that we can enjoy that food. So farming has always been difficult. It's been difficult, and it's going to become more difficult. That's what's hard. And Christy had said, well, I want an experienced farmer. At this point, 35 years of experience isn't really helping much in terms of trying to figure out how to adapt to some of these changes. And that's why it's really going to take all of us to figure out how to share some of those resources with each other. But I see the power of this organization. I think it's, from its inception, it's been a way to sort of find ways to support local foods. And one of the benefits is that it's also a way for us to find each other and to support each other in some really, really difficult times. And when Christy stopped the other day, I said, well, how is everybody doing? How are the other farmers doing where your hives are? And she said, people are so stressed this summer. She goes, I haven't really even seen anyone. And I think that's one of the things is I think we're going to have to find a way to help each other through the reality of climate anxiety, that there is this weight that we're carrying, and we're going to have to figure out a way to share that and to reach out to each other and to check in with each other and see how we're doing, to take care of ourselves. And so I want to end with a Windleberry poem, which is from the Prayers and Sayings of the Mad Farmer. And this is something that I found myself saying repeatedly this season. And it is, let me wake in the night and hear the rain gently falling and roll over and go back to sleep. Thank you.